Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rescue's final webinar for 2023. And this is a Christmas gift from the Board of Directors of Western United Credit Union, Foot Health, and you. In studio, I have with me our podiatrist, Ms. Leana Huntley. We are streaming live from Almawi. I got it right, yes?
Yes,
right. Almawi Clinic. And this evening, we are going to be discussing foot health and you. Now, in preparing myself and asking questions to myself, and then wondering, we take these two little things for granted for every single day. We get off the bed, we put our feet on the ground, we move about without even thinking the importance of our feet and that they are the very foundation of our bodies and carry us around on a daily basis. So folks, just to introduce to you our podiatrist for this evening, Miss Leana Huntley. And Leana is the founder and managing director of Almawi Clinic here in St. Augustine. We are not at Westview's boardroom as usual, but we decided to take it out and come to Leana's clinic in St. Joseph. Leana, welcome to Westview's final webinar for 2023.
Thank you, President Ferret. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. So, as I was saying a little while ago, Leana, we take our feet for granted and forgetting that our feet are the foundation of our bodies. But as I was doing my research, one of the things that really struck me in taking it for granted is that our feet can also tell us whether we have medical issues or not. Am I on point?
Correct.
Wonderful. So this evening, we are going to discuss various topics, but one of the topics that I really want to zero in on is foot health and diabetes.
Which is a critical area.
Very critical area. So just to jump right into it, I am just going to ask the question, what are some of the foot problems that we as human beings experience that affect us and affect our lives on a daily basis? And then we can get into the discussion on foot health and diabetes.
So there are varied problems that tend to occur within persons, and ironically, it's also tied into temperatures. Because, for instance, in the Caribbean or any country that the temperature is quite hot, there are certain conditions that would tend to affect us more than in a cold country, and there are certain conditions that are quite unique to that particular temperature as well. So a common condition in the Caribbean is fungal issues, and that can be interdigitally, so what we commonly call athlete's foot. It can be fungal nail infections, so where we'll see the thickening and crumbling and discoloration of the toenails. We can have surface fungus, so on the soles of the feet. If we stay on the topic of the nails, ingrown toenails, and that's a major problem that a lot of persons suffer with. From toddlers going all the way up, it's a major condition that affects persons. So something that, as podiatrists, we see quite often is in the very young ones, they tend to, when they're watching television, sit and they're picking at the toenails. And it happens a lot more in boys, I've noticed.
Yes.
And some boys turn into men that still pick. And that is a very common thing that occurs, which can then lead to ingrowns. Another element of ingrowns is the way we would cut the toenails and the footwear that we use. And footwear is a hot topic. It's something that I have many challenges with patients. We have, I would say, friendly fights regarding it. And that is something that it's more about awareness. And once persons understand that, and then understand the pain that they can cause themselves due to not adhering to the right things, then
Footwear.
it makes a major difference. We also have things like plantar warts, which in Trinidad we commonly call fish eyes. And again, because we're in the Caribbean, a lot of persons love to walk barefooted. There's a
So
lot of
walking bare feet is a no-no?
it's a no-no. It's
So you can see that again for our audience, because I know a lot of Trinidadians, as you said, love to walk bare feet.
yes, I would often get the excuses, but I feel like I'm at one with the earth. It's a connection. And my initial response would be, you didn't get enough licks when you're a child for not having slippers on. So that's a critical area as well. Walking barefooted can lead to many problems like puncture wounds. And for anyone, that's something that is major, because you can, if it's, say, for instance, a nail, and the nail is rusty, then that can lead to blood infection. And more so if you're diabetic, that is something that can, as we love to say, move from 0 to 100 quite quickly. So you can
Yes.
move from what's seemingly a little puncture in the foot to an amputation.
And sometimes you may get the puncture and not even know.
And that's an area that we will cover later on,
Yes.
neuropathy, which is nerve damage.
Yes.
Because in some persons with diabetes, it's why diabetes is a numbers game. Maintaining your good numbers and circulation is tied in there, because if you have poor circulation, then that also affects wound healing. So that's another element of things. You have pains in the feet. And again, because we are the Caribbean, a lot of times we tend to, if not walking barefooted, we wear flip-flops. And flip-flops don't provide good support for the feet. And sometimes the footwear we would choose, even corporate footwear, it is motivated most times on fashion and emotions. So we like the color of the
I
footwear.
wonder if I'm guilty of that.
Who knows? Maybe you and more than half of the population. So I once was the person that was guilty. I used to go to parties in 4-inch heels, and then at the end of the night, the feet are burning. But you still have to step in the heels.
Yes.
So it's an emotional thing. Lots of persons, and in the past, I found that the battle was more with the ladies about their footwear, especially when it's a bit narrow in the toe box area. But I have an upward battle with the men as well now.
I am hiding my shoes, guys. I don't want Leana to see what I'm wearing.
What President Ferret does not realize is that I looked at his shoes long before we started the
And see,
session.
why is he wearing those shoes?
Definitely.
Yes.
But the challenge with men is that we have become so fashion focused that it's not only the ladies are focused on a look. Men have transitioned into the metro look. So with it, if you wear tapered pants and your shirts are more slim fitted, they often argue, well, how do you want me to wear what, as Trinis we tend to say, a broad mouth shoe?
Yes.
So
And those are the better shoes to wear.
those, yeah. So in using correct terms, a wide toe box,
Yes.
that is important. But again, as I said, emotions and fashion driven is what we are as a society. So persons are very much conscious of that as opposed to the impact. And really it's ignorance. We didn't grow up in a society where as a toddler you started to use shoes, and you may have had a Clark store that they measure your feet, and you have an understanding of the impact of good footwear with arch support. Something that I've realized over time is that in the Caribbean, because of our foot type, we tend to have broader feet than in other societies. But most of the shoes that we get coming into the country, well, the countries of the Caribbean, are a medium width. So most of us from childhood all the way up, we would have been wearing footwear that wasn't actually properly shaped for our footwear and what for our feet. And what would we do? We'd say, okay, I'm feeling a bit of a pinch on my pinky toe, so you know what? I'm gonna go a size bigger. And it may, in most instances, not be a case of the shoe being, in terms of the length, being the incorrect length, but it's the width. Well, we didn't have the knowledge to cover that, so then it creates problems. So then we have deformities, we have bunions.
So if I may interject here, so buying a pair of shoes and saying that you will work yourself into it, meaning, okay, you know, sometimes you buy a pair of shoes and it's tight. And you're walking and you're like, oh my God, pain for days. But you like the shoe, so it's stretching. So you want it to stretch to reach to your size, and then after that, it becomes more bearable and it's comfortable. Are we saying that going through that process is incorrect, and in addition to that, not only incorrect, but it can also cause foot problems?
You said it. So definitely it does. So I tell persons, if you go to the store and the shoe is not comfortable in the store, it's not your shoe. So you try on a pair of shoes, and something I've seen many times, persons get into the store, they sit on the stool or whatever areas are located, and they try on a pair of shoes and they never stand up to see how it feels standing in it. They never take a stroll through the store to see how it feels at that point, if their toes can wiggle in the toe box area, if in the heel region, behind the heel, if it's comfortable. None of that is explored. Or sometimes people may say, yeah, bring me a size 10. And they just pick up the box, look at the shoe, right, this is what they want, and they leave the store. There's also another major issue, the time of day we shop for footwear. So later in the day, the time of day. So later in the day, our feet are at its biggest. It's maybe not swollen, to the extent of like really puffy, but it's at its biggest. We were on our feet or sitting with our feet hanging down for, the majority of the day. So the feet are at its biggest. So you then at that point get the best possible fit. So say persons, I went to school in Port of Spain, but I don't work in Port of Spain. But I remember very clearly seeing people in Port of Spain, and let's say it's the lunch hour. You say, let me in my lunch hour go down in town and I'll get a pair of shoes or such. That's actually not the best time of the day, or get into the mall as soon as the store is open. It's best, or if you're on a trip, because a lot of us are, traveling abroad, so we may shop for your clothes, do your sightseeing, do everything earlier in the day, and let that be the thing you do in the later part of the day, so that you get the best possible fit. So it's the reason that sometimes we put on a pair of shoes, and then at a later stage we complain that the shoes didn't feel like this in the store. But there are so many factors as to why there may be a difference in the feel.
And that is something that I never knew.
Right.
Because, you want to get to the mall, or you want to get to the store, and you want to get there early to get in and out before the crowd. Or as I said, during your lunch hour, you want to just run away and buy the pair of shoes. But it never occurred to me that the best time to buy a pair of shoes is later down in the day, when your feet are feeling, as I said, kind of swollen, but it's not swollen. But can we say it's like more relaxed?
Yeah, and it is, slightly swollen state sometimes. So you find that is the best time
to purchase.
Another thing that often I hear Trinbagonians saying, and it is something that I remember at a younger age when I didn't have the knowledge base, I would laugh when I see some tourists come into the country and the type of footwear they would have on and say, oh my God, that is ugly. And guess what? It was orthopedic slippers or sandals, or they were in sneakers. But we love when we're casual to have on nice looking slipper or a loafer in the men. And I used to say, goodness, what is wrong with their dress sense? Look at those shoes. They're terrible looking. But actually, they were the smart ones. Because if you're wearing a pair of sneakers when you're on holiday, you're getting more shock absorbency. So you're less inclined to suffer from foot pains and have other issues cropping up. Equally, if you wear orthopedic type sandals or slippers, it gives you better support. So we often go on holiday and we have on a nice, fancy, glitzy or some pattern type of slipper or sandal, and it can be more detrimental at the end of the trip. We have problems, we come back, and then guess what? We're running off to the GP or the podiatrist to get some sort of aid because our feet are in agony.
So before we go into the discussion with good foot health and diabetes, I just want to briefly touch on certain areas as it pertains to foot health so that we can have a discussion on those. Because what was amazing to me is to read and to understand that your feet can really speak to your health. And if you are wise enough and know what to look for, or even though you don't know what to look for, but you are feeling or sensing the difference in your feet, you should go to your doctor or come to someone like you, a podiatrist, who would be able to guide you along the way of what is really happening. So, one of the things that stood out for me as well is when we talk about cold feet. And then we heard it is more prevalent, I think it was in women. And then when the link that if it is persistent, that sign is that you may have a thyroid problem. Is that
So there are
correct?
so many things that in the feet are linked to other things. So for instance, there's a particular there's a particular vascular test that can be done in the
Yes.
feet, and that can also detect a irregular heartbeat. So there are so many things that are linked, and even in terms of the thyroid, some persons may have issues with the skin drying out excessively, issues with swelling, and issues with swelling can be tied to the kidney, it can be tied to the heart, it could be tied to circulation. So it's a lot of elements that has to be the social and medical history that has to be linked to then determine, because some things mirror other things,
Yes.
and it can be one thing or the other. So you have to do elimination. Sometimes you have to do diagnostic testing. You may sometimes, as a podiatrist, we're the middleman. So sometimes we have to then refer that patient back to their GP or to vascular or neuro or orthopedic. There are so many elements that, or to endocrinologists. So for instance, as you highlighted, the thyroid gland. So there are many specialties or rheumatologists that, so it's a multidisciplinary team approach that you have to physiotherapy to aid with things, many areas.
And then it showed that sunken toenails is linked to someone being anemic. Now, I am just listing it out for the viewing audience and to show that if we are made aware of these two beautiful gifts from God,
Yes.
of what to look for, then we know, okay, we need to come to Leana or we need to go to our doctor. Sometimes our doctors may refer us to Leana for her to give us
Correct.
the treatment that we need. But what was so mind blowing to me is to see that these things are linked to different illnesses that you may be suffering from in your body.
Correct.
We spoke about fungus in the toenail. Is there any particular thing that causes that? I mean, you said that we as Caribbean people, we would tend to suffer from,
We're more prone to it.
yes, be more prone to it.
Yes, and one of the major things is if we're into sports, that is an element because often if you're into sports, you're a footballer, you would tend to use the public shower stall, or sometimes after a game, it's a concreted area and all the guys are actually there having a shower.
Yes.
Outside of that, a lot of persons, they sweat in their feet. They have overactive sweat glands. So excessive sweating can contribute. Pools. A lot of persons swim recreationally or they are involved in aquatherapy, which is
Yes.
quite common, for persons who have ailments or just for general exercise. And that also contributes to issues with fungus because it's moist areas. If we don't dry between our toes properly, that is an element as well. So there are many factors. Men, a common thing is not changing your socks
On a daily basis.
A lot of men never put thought into it. And there's bacteria that would reside there. So if you're sweating in your feet and you're wearing that pair of socks for 2-3 days, sometimes a week, that is also a contributing factor. And then if we are looking at treating the fungus, but we're not treating the footwear, then it's cross-infection. So you have to target all elements to get a better result in terms of from a treatment perspective.
So you have to change socks on a daily basis.
Yes.
Treat the shoes as well.
Correct. And the feet.
And the feet. And in addition to that, we have to be very careful in terms of sharing of bathroom spaces and all these sorts of things.
So not, if someone who has fungus in their house and it's not possible, like in COVID, they would say, okay, if one person has COVID, they use that bathroom by themselves.
Yes.
But not all households are set up that way. So if you have to share a bathroom, it's sanitizing properly. And another factor may be the dynamic of two brothers wearing the same shoe size, or mother and daughter wearing the same shoe size, and this is matching with my outfit, or this is cute. And with swap footwear, we shouldn't wear anyone else's footwear. Not just from a fungal perspective, but from a biomechanics perspective, because each of us, our feet have different dynamics. So putting on someone's footwear, the shoes have already taken the shape of their feet. So then that is detrimental to you because it then can have an impact and cause you problems.
And problems such as joint pains, back pains.
Yeah, it can be a range of things in the lower extremities. But more importantly, for instance, persons, if they walk and roll on the outside of the feet, which is called supination, then their heels can grind down on the outside. So if they then share that footwear with someone else, that person can put it on, they can have an ankle strain or sprain because one side is significantly worn down as compared to the other, or they develop pains after using it because it's not giving them the level of support because of how the other person walks, their gait, which is the way they walk. So a number of things can go wrong. So you have to be careful when utilizing footwear that you just use yours and not share with anyone
else. And it's not to say that you're being selfish, you're just following proper hygiene, proper health in terms of your feet.
Correct.
So now I want us to have the discussion on a disease that is very prevalent in society, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the region and the world.
Yes.
Diabetes is a disease that can be considered a slow killer, and especially when you are unaware that you have diabetes. So, long term sores can be an indication that either you have excessive glucose in your system, or there's a possibility that you have diabetes, because you will have a sore, be it on your hand or your feet, but we are dealing with feet today, that there's a possibility that you have diabetes, in addition to numbness. So I want us to spend some time now dealing with diabetes. What is diabetes? In the Caribbean, we say you're sweet, right?
Or you just
Or
have
you
a
have
little bit
sugar,
of sugar.
a little bit of sugar. So we want to spend some time there, because too often, as we would have discussed before, if you're walking bare feet and you get a nail drop, depending on how far gone you are, you may not even feel it.
Correct.
And then later down the road, you realize that part of your feet is now infected. And sometimes you can catch it, or at other times it may be too late. So we wanted to understand and tell the general public that is viewing what is diabetes, why it is important that as a diabetic, we should be more in tune with foot health, and we want to talk about numbness and why, as a diabetic person, we may experience numbness in the feet or the tingling of the feet, and what does that mean as a diabetic when I am feeling my feet tingling, or maybe whole day I may not have any tingles in my feet, but as soon as I eat something, my feet start to tingle.
Right.
So I would allow you to share your screen now, and we can go into our discussion about diabetes and good foot health.
Right. So, in terms of diabetes, as President Ferret indicated, it's a major area that contributes to problems in our society, quite prevalent in the Caribbean and throughout the world. So it's one of the world's most prevalent non-communicable diseases. And diabetes is so broad-based. When you develop that condition, it can affect all of our organs and our body systems. So as I indicated earlier, it's a numbers game, and that's something that's very serious for us to understand. The Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, they have been trying to do a lot of outreach, letting persons know that in everything you do, it's a numbers game. So if it's your cholesterol, if it's your blood pressure, if it's your blood glucose, or sugar, as Trinbagonians like to say, it's a numbers game. If we don't have good numbers, it impacts us in a negative way. So there is a mandate by the Ministry of Health to develop centers throughout the country, because of course not everyone is able to access private healthcare. So they are currently rolling out centers throughout the country because there aren't many podiatrists in Trinidad and Tobago. And as a result, some persons may go to their GP or they go to the health center and things may be missed because the feet is not the area that most times is at the point of focus. So if we focus on that a little more, our amputation rate in the country would be significantly reduced. But sadly it isn't, and that's the mandate that is currently in being ruled out. We have statistics that 2/3 of people with diabetes are of the working age, and that is approximately 327 million people. Now, if we break that down and focus on it a little more, if they are of the working age, then it means that productivity levels in the workplace can be significantly reduced.
Affected, yes.
So it impacts. It also means, and it's something that I attended a session that the Ministry of Health had, earlier this year. And what was highlighted is the amount of money is spent on the diabetic foot within public health. And the amount of bed capacity there is, and a significant amount of that is dedicated to the diabetic foot. So often when we head to the hospital because we're diabetic, we weren't maintaining our numbers, we weren't paying attention to checking our feet daily, and we get there and we're in a position that things are in a bad way, we take up a hospital bed. And then usually it takes a long time with the diabetic foot for things to get sorted. And sometimes things getting sorted can be an amputation. So it is really important for us to focus on diabetes and the impact within the foot. It is important for us to understand that if we have a problem occurring, that early detection, just like with any other condition, early detection is key in terms of us getting the necessary support and the necessary care. So the American Podiatric Medical Association has indicated that more than 65,000 lower limbs are amputated annually due to complications of diabetes. Now that's a vast number.
Yes.
Throughout the Caribbean, we don't have many podiatrists. Sometimes persons can't even pronounce the word because it's a profession that isn't well known and isn't well understood. So they have a problem and they speak to their neighbor or they speak to a family member and someone tells them to heat Wonder of the World or to rub some soft candle and that would make everything okay. And then things get to a stage where it's out of control and they then have to refocus, and sometimes when they do, it's a bit late. So another statistic is that after an amputation, there's a chance of another amputation occurring within 3 to 5 years. And that is something that is alarming because sometimes an amputation may be a digit, just one toe. But if you lose a digit, what isn't well understood is the impact of that with your balance. And if you lose a digit and then your balance is severely affected, what then occurs is a potential for a fall. And a fall could then set someone back in a major way. A fall can be a concussion, a fall can be a person having a broken hip. So it's quite vast in terms of one thing leading to many other things occurring. Now, in terms of the amputation rates, if we can educate persons, as the credit union is doing currently, then we equip people. It's just like you teach a man to fish. We equip people with the knowledge so that they know what they need to do on a daily basis, and that would impact them in a positive way so that they understand what neuropathy is. So neuropathy, when we hear neuro, that speaks to the nerves.
Yes.
And neuropathy can lead to a number of problems. So you spoke about it earlier. Sometimes persons may experience the tingling or the burning in the feet. They experience numbness. They experience, heightened sensation as well, sensitivity to hot or cold. Now, if we were to focus on numbness, for instance, if some persons aren't aware that their feet are numb until something sticks them, they get an infection, and then they wonder what happened because they didn't feel anything. Or they see a blood trail, and that was the first marker that something went wrong. So if you're wearing footwear and you don't have any sensation, then something can stick you. It can be a simple pebble gets into the shoe, and you're not aware that this occurred. Or it can be that you're walking barefooted, which no diabetic should do. And you're walking barefooted And think of a glass breaking. Sometimes it happened
Yes.
2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you think, oh, okay, I sweep this area, I sweep it again, so everything is fine. And
Yes.
2 weeks later, it seems like a nice little, what looks like a diamond in the corner.
Yes.
If you have no sensation, that splinter gets into your foot. And then you move from a splinter in your foot, you're not aware, you don't check your feet daily, an infection occurs, and then you're in an emergency room having an amputation.
So I like what you said just now about checking your foot or your feet daily.
Daily.
So part of proper health care in terms of an individual's feet is that we all should check our feet whether we have diabetes or not on a daily basis.
Correct.
We should pay particular attention
to
our feet.
Yes, we should dry between our toes and take the opportunity then to see if there are any breaks in the skin.
And one of the things that I learned from you being my podiatrist, yes, people, one of the best in the Caribbean. I would not have been here if she was not an excellent, I must say it, excellent bedside manner.
Thank you, I try.
Excellent. Well, you do more than try, you deliver. Is that one must not cream between their toes.
Correct.
And I grew up, when I cream in everything, man. But after our discussion, when you did my surgery and in the conversation you said that one should not cream between your toes, I was like, okay. Well, I no longer do that.
Right.
I just cream the surface and that is it. So even the creaming between your toes is a no-no because that can be sweating.
Yes.
And in addition to that, the athlete's foot, that can also cause that as well.
So it can impact in terms of athlete's foot. And I was quite proud of you that you actually moisturize your feet because that's something as well that a lot of persons don't do.
Yes.
And you would think that we have pride in moisturizing our feet because we tend to wear a lot of flip-flops and sandals. Mm-hmm. But ironically, a lot of persons don't. And of course, because of my profession, if I'm at the bank, if I'm at any institution,
yes,
I am constantly looking at people's feet. It's sometimes annoying that I do it all the time, but you can't help it. And you would see these deep cracks. You would see these dry, ashy feet. And it's because a lot of persons that has never been in focus that they should moisturize their feet. But for those that do, they tend to go all the way and then they do the interdigitally. So yes, it can lead to athlete's foot. So it's not really the best. It's not the ideal in terms of doing such. So that is another area that persons need to note.
And the cracks on the heel of the feet, that is also because of a lack of moisturizing.
So yes, so lack of hydration, it can be topically, which is moisturizing, and also our water intake.
Yes.
Because the skin can get dehydrated. Then the type of footwear we use. So sometimes we use footwear, if we are constantly in open footwear, and the skin, because there are moisturizers that are more water-based, and then there are those that are more urea or lanolin-based, which gives you better hydration. And if you're not using the right type of moisturizer to suit your foot type, then that impacts as well. And also, so for instance, in COVID, a number of us gained some weight. So weight gain can also impact in terms of the pressure on our feet. The activities we do, if we don't do any maintenance, so for instance, if you don't go for regular pedicures or care at your podiatrist or do your own home care, do your own soaking and filing, then that impacts in terms of callus buildup in the feet and then would lead to cracks.
Now, if anybody has any questions, they can type it in the Q&A, and I will try to have Leana answer your question this evening. This is just the first webinar of Foot Health and You with Leana. We are going to have a few others, Leana, hint, hint.
But
Yeah?
I'm hearing that now.
No, because you see, it is a very wide
It is.
topic.
It is.
And there is so much that we can cover, but not just in 1 hour.
Correct.
So we are going to have a few others in terms, because it is important, and especially why the board of directors decided to give this to our membership and the wider population of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, there are some people who are tuning in abroad as well,
Right.
is because it is important. Now it's Christmas time. Everybody's busy. Are we really going to take the time and sit down and pay attention to our feet? We are tired. You're going, you're cleaning whole day, whole night. Are we going to soak our feet in some Epsom salts to relax it or
Have
whatever?
the right footwear on.
Have the right footwear
If we're
on.
traveling through international airports, are we wearing the right footwear to give our feet support?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going into a cold country, are we wearing the right footwear? We can't go with our Caribbean feet into, and this year, a lot of countries that are cold, they're having a lot of snow already.
Yes.
So, as I indicated in the early part of the session, there are conditions that are, tied in with climate. So you have something called chilblains that can occur in persons who don't wear thick enough socks and properly supportive enclosed footwear in the winter time. It causes blisters to the toes, the tips of the toes, and can ulcerate. So there are a lot of things that we have to focus on, not just here, but if we don't wear appropriate footwear in travel abroad, then that can lead to a number of pains in the feet. And there are lots of conditions, pains wise, that can occur. And then a simple change in footwear could have eliminated or avoided that from happening. And they can then end up with what is a chronic issue in the long run and takes a lot more time and a lot more footwear changes to get back to some sort of normalcy.
All right. I just want to engage and ask some questions from the viewing audience. But in terms of a construction worker who has diabetes, and of course, being a construction worker, there's the steel-tip boots.
Correct.
What type of support in terms of a construction worker, or you are a person who deals with air conditioning,
manufacturing, engineering, anything out on the field?
So you have these steel-tip boots. Should they get an additional sole to put in? And instead of wearing any socks, what type of socks would you suggest for someone working in that field to use on a daily basis?
Okay, so in those sectors, yes, the steel-tip boots is critical. But one of the factors that has to be considered is the elements, and that's something that we don't have time to focus too much on now. But in each footwear grouping, then you have to look at, is it wide enough in the toe box area? Because though it's steel tip, some shoes are more tapered than others, some of the boots. Does it have a built-in arch support? Because previously, a lot of manufacturers of steel tip boots, what they did was focus more on the safety aspect of stuff and not so much the health aspect. But there are safety boots now that consider both safety and health. So some of them are a lot more lightweight in terms of the toe box area. They come wide width. They would come with a lot more cushion support, some of them. And the type of rubber or EVA, which is another material used that is utilized, can, give good support. So it's a number of factors, whether the boots has sufficient flexibility or if it's quite inflexible, those elements. So if the boots, for instance, does not have sufficient support, then it would be looking at whether the inner sole within the boots can be removed and be replaced with a generic insole. And that can be, one of the brands that we're quite familiar with, that we could get at one of the local pharmacies. However, in persons who have severe foot problems, using a generic support wouldn't work. So then in an instance like that, they need to look at customized art supports orthotics that would give them support to suit the problems that they have occurring. Because we have a number of conditions that can occur with the feet, structural issues. For instance, if someone is flat-footed as opposed to high arch, so they may have a pair of boots and that satisfies the requirement of the safety. But if they also have abnormalities in their feet, then it would impact them negatively if it doesn't have certain factors satisfied, or if they don't have the inner soles. So some boots are quite comfortable now and quite lightweight, but besides persons just being on their feet, I've seen many persons driving forklifts, and if the boots did not have a certain level of flexibility, they get repetitive strain injuries because their feet are at an angle and there isn't that flexibility. Yes. Persons who are technicians and they may have to climb ladders, again, if there isn't a certain level of flexibility in the boots, it impacts them as well. So there are many elements that have to be explored. Also, sometimes a company may have a policy in terms of how often the boots are changed. So some companies it's a 2-year period. And depending on the surface the person is working on, depending on what is happening with their feet, it's maybe that they have to change on a yearly basis or even less than a year. So there are those elements that also have to be factored in. Sometimes I say to patients, they say to me, well, the company doesn't change in under 2 years. And I would indicate to them, well, you have to seek your interests and your foot health. So then a discussion needs to be had with your company if they are not going to change, whether you would be allowed to purchase your own boots and so that you could satisfy your needs. So there are many elements where that's concerned. The boots can contribute to toes hammering, which are where the toes can claw.
Yes.
It can contribute to issues with bunions, which is a bony deformity in the big toe joint. It can also contribute to deviation of toes. So we often thought that toes climbing on top of each other was an elderly person thing. But footwear impacts. If you have arthritis, that can impact. And all these things can occur and contribute to problems. And the steel tip boots, there are many persons that get ingrown toenails with that as well.
Because of that.
Because of it. And then because it's a requirement for the workplace, it's not such that they can use an alternative type of shoe. So they're stuck in the steel tip. They have an ingrown. They can't be out of the boots. They're often in it 8, 12, 16 hours. And then sometimes they get infections, and that can lead to major problems as well.
Okay, and it so happened that our first question was, how does wearing steel boots impact the feet? So you answered that without us even reading. Right? And the second question is, how often should one see a podiatrist?
So first, you should have a consultation. And from that consultation, then based on the assessment of what's happening with your feet, whether you're diabetic, non-diabetic, the issues occurring, it then would be classified whether, and sometimes it's preference. Some persons may prefer go to a podiatrist than go to a pedicures, whether they're diabetic or not.
Yes.
Some persons may be presenting with a problem that may need multiple treatments, or sometimes you may be stratified if you're diabetic based on your risk assessment, and that will determine how often. So it's not something that is hard and fast that can be determined that I can tell the member, okay, it's every 3 weeks or it's every 3 months or yearly. That has to be determined based on what is happening. Because sometimes you may come in for one issue and then other things are highlighted because we have issues with the way we walk, with our foot type, with varied things. So sometimes you may think, oh, well, I don't like how my toenail looks. So that is your issue. And then we establish there are so many other issues, or I immediately jump on you because you're wearing a ballerina flat, or you're wearing a pointy tip shoe. And then we engage in those discussions. I see President Ferret smiling.
Just mark. Guys, you all want to get a shot of my shoe so that people can see what not to wear.
And should I say, because I would not have highlighted that he's my patient, but he sent me when we spoke about the footwear, he said, so it sounds to me that there are some of my footwear that you would not approve. And he sent them via WhatsApp, and he was so saddened when I indicated that some of them were definitely not appropriate.
Yes, of course, because it is important that we understand that taking care of our feet that we take for granted so often on a daily basis is important, and it starts with proper footwear as well. And even with these steel-tip boots, I'm hearing that safety equals health and health equals safety.
It needs to go hand in hand.
Both hand in hand. I am seeing here is shaving of feet to remove build-up recommended during pedicures.
So there are different pedicures programs, and one has to be careful because if not trained properly, someone using a callus cutter can be quite detrimental to someone, even in a person who is not diabetic. So in podiatry, we do debridement, which is what the person would have referred to as shaving. But you have to know how much you're going to remove, because a callus, depending on what your issues are, can form a protective layer. So if you remove too much, then instead of helping that person, you can put them in a position that they're in a lot of pain.
Yes.
And then if you do remove too much, there can be a break in the skin, it bleeds, and that could lead to an infection. So you really have to be careful that it's a trained professional that is doing such. And sometimes, in some instances, it may be that you need to incorporate other elements that you need to use insoles to aid with it, that you're not moisturizing, you're not doing constant maintenance, and that impacts as well.
Okay. I am seeing here no nerve endings on sole of feet, how to improve nerve endings on sole of feet. And that is peripheral neuropathy.
Okay, peripheral neuropathy.
Yeah.
Yes. So peripheral neuropathy isn't only linked to diabetes. Someone without diabetes can have neuropathy. So often when someone hears that a person has neuropathy, they immediately say, well, you have to have diabetes or you must have sugar now. But if you have spinal issues, you can have neuropathy. You can have an accident that can contribute to neuropathy. And then it has to be, an assessment has to be done to determine where it stems from, to then appropriately, create a treatment plan. There are many times that I may see a patient and I may be able to help them with it, but there are times that it's tied in to other things, or just overall they may not be aware that there's a specialty such as a neurologist. So then it is often a good idea that they get an assessment by a neurologist to see what is happening. Then you also have the link of the circulatory system and the nervous system. So that impacts. Then if you have someone...
Just stick up in as you're going to talk about circulation at me. So maybe you can tie this question into it. I now have a circulation problem in my left foot only. I was told it was my veins. But could this have been caused because of poor fitted footwear?
All right. So there are many factors that can contribute to issues with circulation. And as I indicated earlier, just to wrap that up, if you have circulatory issues, then that can impact the nerves as well. So they can go hand in hand, and it's important for you to get assessments to determine what it is. In terms of the member that indicated that they were told it's their varicose veins that is contributing to their circulatory problems, that person needs to have an overall assessment. In some instances, they may have foot problems, they come to a podiatrist, and then, depending on what is presented, it then is forwarded to vascular. But really, a vascular assessment needs to be done. There's a diagnostic called a duplex Doppler ultrasound, or there's an arterial ultrasound that can be done to determine what is occurring at that level and then what treatment is required. So if you have issues with your veins and you're getting edema, which is swelling in the feet, and you're wearing inappropriate footwear to facilitate the swelling in the feet, then yes, the footwear can impact. But we have to start at the level of the veins and what is happening within the veins, whether it's a constriction of the veins, what is occurring, whether they are veins that are not functioning well, so it's not pumping the blood. Then from there it could be determined what the issue is and what is required treatment-wise. There are a number of treatments that vascular surgeons, and some are minimally invasive, some are non-invasive, that they can carry out to create a better quality of life. Sometimes it's from a pharmaceutical perspective. The patient is given a medication along with compression stockings, told about, exercise, stretches, and that can impact. Sometimes they just overall need to get more active or change up their workstation, or if they are a homemaker, change up their activities, how they do things, and then that makes a world of a difference.
The last question we have in the chat are bunions hereditary?
So you don't inherit bunions, that's a bony deformity, but you can inherit the foot type. So it's the same way that sometimes persons may say to you, oh my God, when I saw you, I thought of your father, you're walking just like your father now. Or they look at you and they say, my goodness, when I look at your feet, I just see in your mother feet in you. So you may have the foot type of a relative, and that foot type may be more prone to issues, and that's how you can have that linkage. But with bunions, you also have major problem, which is the footwear that we utilize.
And what I've been hearing throughout the webinar is proper foot health means proper footwear as well.
Certainly.
Sure enough, and that made me
And usually proper footwear is not cheap. Orthopedic footwear is not a penny by any stretch, but it's an investment.
Yes, so instead of looking at it as an expenditure, you look at it as an investment in yourself for proper foot health.
And sometimes it's part of a management plan. So we use glasses, for instance. So you have eyewear. And for varied reasons, some persons, they need it more for reading, other persons, it's different conditions. And you would see an eye company advertise, and they may tell you, okay, you can get spectacles under $1,000 or just over $1,000. And it's not false advertising. That may be the cost of the lenses. But then my problem compared to your problem, compared to the next person, is quite varied. So it may then be, and that's not my area, that's another part of the body, but it may be that you have to get transition lenses, and then that adds the price by however much, and you need to get something for when you're out in the sun, or you need this or you need that. So it's the same in terms of footwear, in terms of orthotics. You, depending on what you present with, will determine what you need. So for instance, I am high arch as opposed to someone who's flat-footed. But in both realms, it's considered abnormal. And in both realms, and all of us really should be wearing footwear with orthopedic support. So while I don't have pains in my feet and I don't have any issues where I'm hopping around and uncomfortable, I wear slippers and sandals. Even at home, my slippers have orthopedic support. So it has that built-in arch support. So it's preventative. I'm trying to reduce the risk of major problems occurring. Based on my foot type, it doesn't mean that I can't have problems occurring later on. But by me doing something in advance, it's reducing the risk of certain things, retarding that process.
Yeah.
So that is important.
Just last comment, because time really flies when you're having fun. It is now 7:33.
Right.
Yeah. So I just want to read something that Dixian placed in the chat. I use Amen's medical powder in my shoes to keep my feet dry since I had a serious case of athlete's foot on a few occasions. However, since the use of this powder, I have not had any case of athlete's foot. The problem is my feet and my shoe are white because of the powder, of course. Could you recommend any other powder that can be used to address this situation?
So, in her giving her scenario, it shows how if we do things, preventatively, or we do things to manage, how it can impact us in a positive way. So powders are excellent, especially if we sweat in our feet or we just want to ensure that we don't have a reoccurrence of athlete's foot or surface fungus. But yes, it can get messy. So an alternative, there are foot sprays that you can purchase, and that it's just like you have certain types of aerosol deodorants for underarm. So you have the foot spray, and then it doesn't have that residual effect. So you don't have the messiness when you take off your shoe, or when, you walking around post footwear and everywhere gets that white powdery, like if it's Juve morning, right?
Yes.
So the sprays work quite well, and it can be sprayed on the feet and also sprayed in the footwear to help eliminate or in the case of manage fungal infections.
Infection as well.
Yes. And as I said, masqueraders. Very quickly, let me stress, we're going into the carnival season right after Christmas.
Yes.
There are many persons who, like myself, I love Christmas, I love the foods, but I'm already thinking about carnival. And as a former masquerader, I am very much aware of some of the issues that, and maybe that's something we could focus on, because it's a major thing in another session. It's a major thing that happens in our society. It's something that's dear to our heart. And because we have switched gears and it's mainly about the all-inclusives, ladies are wearing their wedges or heels. Some of them are going totally flat. Men are wearing their loafers. Some of them are quite pointed. And you're standing for a number of hours or dancing or whining or doing whatever you're doing at these fests. And then if you're a masquerader, then Monday and Tuesday, the impact on the feet. So straight from Christmas, where you clean the whole house for all the cleaning you didn't do for the year, and then you go straight into the fetting, there's a major impact, and we have to be careful. Then you can't go to a fete and not expect, or you can't play mass and not expect that someone may mash your feet. And I've had instances of people calling, begging for emergency appointments because their feet was in a pool of blood after someone stepped on it.
Yes.
Or they wore inappropriate footwear and they're in so much pain, but they have X amount of fetes lined up. So we have to be mindful that we have to make smart, it's coming back again, footwear choices during the Christmas and carnival season. So the Christmas parties, for the COVID period, we're getting in all that we didn't get in that period gone. And for all who didn't fet like myself,
Mm-hmm.
in this year's Carnival 2024, you're looking forward to 1 or 2 fets, and you need to be smart with your footwear.
With your footwear. One of the things that seems to be very prevalent now is like the norm that you would see a lot of ladies, and you mention it, in these high heel shoes jumping because they want to look very sexy and
It accentuates your
yeah,
calves, didn't you know?
yeah. Okay. Okay.
But I'm wiser now, so
Yes.
I'm a lot more cautious in my choices.
Yeah. And you're saying that is a no-no.
You have to be very careful with your selection, because you could look really good for a fet in the early part of the season, and then later on you're in agony at the others because you're not going to let your money waste that you spent on the fet, but their feet are in agony. I remember a few years ago a 74-year-old coming in to me, and she told me she went to semis and she wore a high wedge. She said, but I thought I was wearing a wedge so that the weight bearing would be evenly distributed throughout the shoe. But it was extremely high. It was like a 4-inch wedge. So she was in agony, and she came. I don't know what sort of magic I was expected to work, but she came expecting that I would be able to eliminate her foot pain for finals, which was impossible. So you have to be smart with your choices. You don't go totally flat, but at the same time you wear a very, small wedge. You don't go into stilettos either. That is definitely a no-no, because it's not just your feet. You can impact your spine by wearing that type of footwear. So that is an important element, that you have to let the emotions and stop being the ultimate socialite cloud your thoughts
trying to be
in your choices.
A carnival diva.
Correct.
Yes, so you wear the appropriate footwear to ensure that you have proper foot
enjoyment
health.
and enjoyment throughout the season.
Yes. So we are seeing that from Christmas into Carnival, it is important that we have the correct footwear at all times.
Correct.
Cleaning and of course a lot of Christmas shopping.
Oh yes.
So you're in and out grocery mall, then you want to go by, I think it's this free zone in Shogunas to Shoppers Free Zone.
Right.
To get the reduced prices and all these things.
And the parangin and
that is
all the Christmas parties.
The pressure is on your feet.
Always.
So we should wear proper footwear, and even with the carnival and also with the steel tip shoe, and someone being diabetic, and you don't have that proper cushioning within the shoe, can also cause, with the friction, the toe rubbing against the inner part of the shoe, can also cause infections.
Yes, can cause an ulcer, and a simple break in the skin could cause an infection.
An infection as well.
Yes.
So as a diabetic, you need to pay particular attention to the type of shoe that you wear at all times.
Correct.
And then the numbness, we need to pay attention to numbness. We need to pay attention to various things, check our feet on a daily basis. So before we wrap up, Leana, and of course you can call me Mark instead of President Mark, I am cool with that. Before we wrap up, may we have some health tips that we can do on a daily basis to have good health as it relates to our feet?
Right. So besides the daily checks and drying between the toes after a shower, it's important when we're cutting our toenails, whether it's being done, at a pedicurist station, or you're doing it at home, that you ensure whoever is cutting the toenails that they always cut straight across. Curving the corners can contribute to ingrowns. And that's not fun stuff at all. It's the thing that persons least love sitting in my chair for. We need to check for any cuts, any bruises, particularly in the diabetic population, because that is where things can go downhill in terms of an infection.
Yes.
Moisturizing is critical. Uh, you have to ensure that you wear the right footwear, yet again, so that it can eliminate pains and discomfort in the feet. There's so many pains, and we haven't been able to touch on that this time. So many conditions, from heel pains, heel spurs,
Yes.
pains in the ball of the foot area, pains in the tendon that can occur, that from wearing the poor footwear, it then leads down that road. So, for instance, I have a number of patients who are teachers, and it's because their role and function to engage, especially these Gen Zs, to engage
Lord have
them,
mercy.
you have to be on your feet. You can't be, your teaching style can't be sitting. They're going to create havoc. So you
Yes.
have to be on the go. And for instance, in a primary school setting, a teacher, and still I have a lot of primary school teachers, but a teacher basically has her one class or his one class. But in a secondary school setting, and if it's a huge school where you have a lot of levels and you're walking across blocks to get to your different classes, it impacts them negatively. And that's anyone who is in a profession where they're on their feet. So again, you have to focus even in terms of exercise. That's something else we didn't get to focus a whole lot on. And after Christmas, and we eat all our lovely Trini goodies, we then want to lose all the pounds for Carnival. So there's also the issue of overuse injuries, because you may go the route of go hard or go home.
Yes.
Or you may have had, I tell persons, be loyal to your spouse, not to your footwear.
Yes.
Because some persons, they have a pair of sneakers, and that's been the sneakers that they have had for the last 4 years. And they're running the Savannah now, and they're doing Chancellor, and they in Eddie Hart, and they're here, there, and everywhere, exercises there in the gym. And the
And that
footwear is
footwear
worn.
would have, I was not going to see that. That
which
would have
then
been worn over
it's
the 4
worn.
years.
So
Yeah.
then it leads to problems as well. And imagine having to seek professional help to deal with your problems. Sometimes it gets to the stage that a steroidal or a plasma injection needs to be given to a patient, not just for the feet, but it can be issues with the ankle, it can be issues with the knee that leads to that sort of thing. And those things can be eliminated if we just make the right choices. So some persons for the new year, they have, resolutions. Persons come up with a range of things that they need to lose 50 pounds by this time. So then they get into a lot of high impact activities, and then it contributes to problems.
Yes. Oh, me fixing myself wasn't meaning that. I'm just trying to get a more comfortable position to sit. But I'm very glad for those tips. And I really do hope that our viewing audience, and of course this is streaming live on Facebook, in addition to it will be posted on our website and all our social media platforms. So those persons who would have missed it, I want to encourage those of us who is in attendance now to please invite your friends to look at this very important webinar again. I thank you for those tips. And before I do my little closing, is there anything in particular that we didn't touch on for now that you think that you would like to share with us, especially over the Christmas season, before we wrap up this evening?
So something that has happened over the years, and this is me focusing a lot on the elderly population as well. A number of persons over Christmas, they may think, well, their children are busy or they can do it themselves. In the over 60 population, falls is something that can occur quite easily.
Yes.
Sometimes it may be issues with your sight, balance, excuse me.
Sure.
And it's really important that you utilize help from persons. Utilize the right footwear if you're doing activities. So persons are doing all their power washing at this point. And because the area may be mossy, you're dealing with a lot of water, there's dirt, bacteria, that is something that can contribute to you getting a fungal infection. It can contribute to a fall, because if you're in a slippery surface and you don't have on appropriate footwear as well, you have on a flip-flop, you can have a fall. But very common, it's a fungal infection. I had a patient last week. He's diabetic. He came in on a doctor's referral, and he was quite nervous because he's part of a twin, he indicated to me. He's 47 years old, and he had an ulcer. And it started off, basically it started off as athlete's foot. And then now there's this little hole in his foot, and it gets infected. And he highlighted to me that his twin has had a leg amputation. She also is on dialysis. So he was in a mess mentally over this foot healing. Due to another injury he has, an unrelated injury, he has been on sick leave. But now he's due to go back out to work, and now this is happening. So it ties in again to productivity. If you don't make smart choices over the Christmas season and you create problems for yourself, then in the new year, when you should be out to work and productive and not saying, boss, I can't go to work today, you have problems occurring. You can't wear footwear, you're taking time off because of pains and issues that you need to address. So even in our Christmas cleaning, we have to be careful. We don't want that we get puncture wounds because we're tearing the house apart and the yard apart, and we're painting and we're doing this and doing that. So it's about exercising care, thinking about your foot health, thinking about your overall health. In the diabetic population, I can't stress enough the importance of being cautious with the things that you eat. And that is something close to my heart because it then impacts the feet, which is my area of focus. Because if your numbers are quite high, then anything happening with the feet, it impacts how that goes. It impacts healing if you have elevated blood glucose levels. So it's an area that I focus on. I worked in public health part-time previously, and it's a talk I would do each Christmas season with patients. So the reminder would be what black cake has in it and the impact.
So we can't have not even a little sliver?
I did not say you cannot.
I just asked it.
But I'm saying in the diabetic population, you need to have a sliver if you're having it. Because it's the sugar, it's the flour, it's the alcohol, the fruits, the butter, all those things. I know mine's too. But all those things break down into sugar and impacts negatively. And then it's when a problem occurs and we have those high numbers, it impacts the feet, it impacts healing, it impacts things overall. So we can decide, listen, Christmas comes once a year and I'm doing as I feel. And then when something goes wrong, then it's catastrophic. Then we in a funk, how are we going to get this sorted? Then the health professional is expected to be
to work a miracle.
A miracle worker.
Okay, so what about the fruit cake, the black cake, the sponge cake? What about the pastels and the fruits, the apples, the grapes, the pear? I want to go through everything for Christmas.
So fruits are natural sugar, but it's sugar. So you also have to look at the impact of that and how much you're consuming. You have to look at the pastels in persons who have arthritis. Minced meat, that is a red meat, and that can impact your joints. Yes, so it can impact in terms of gout, you start to get pains. The alcohol impacts in terms of gout. So I've had patients after splurging
Yes.
coming and saying, oh my God, the pain, oh God, it was unimaginable. Oh gosh, I can't express to you how much pain I was in. I will never drink again like that. until,
Yes.
as you know, the 9-day wonder with us Trinbagonians.
Yes.
But is it really worth it? Then a lot of persons, if they have an appointment early in the new year, let's say if they attend the health center, when they do their HbA1c test, or through one of their diabetes association groups, they do the A1C test, or some doctors' offices or medical centers, they will get it done there. It's severely elevated. They're bawling, they're trying to figure out how this happened, but it's what we consume
over the Christmas
over the season. And then if in the consumption we're taking our medication or our insulin as we should have, whether we were exercising, typically at that time we just exercise our hands and our mouth. And that is not sufficient.
Yes.
So the exercising falls off, and we'd say, okay, well, after Christmas, I will then get into the weight loss, and I will then focus on eating right. And that's not the way. And with things, it's cumulative. You have to still maintain that focus, or else you're going to land, you can land in hospital, or you can have serious problems occurring.
So, proper footwear.
Yes.
Proper diet. Don't overdo everything in moderation.
Moderation.
And I love how you're stressing on the moderation.
Yes.
So don't overdo at all. Not because it's the Christmas season means that you can just throw caution to the wind.
Definitely
and
not.
Eat anything and as much as you want. Everything in moderation.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I am very happy for this conversation, Leana, and I want to thank you very much for affording us the opportunity to learn so much about proper foot health. As I said, when I was doing the research and I'm reading up on it, and I'm saying, okay, foot health, your feet can tell you if something is wrong with you physically, because that is the very foundation of your entire body. It is tied throughout the various organs and everything throughout your body. And this was a conversation that the board thought that, yes, we should have this conversation, because even though we are a financial institution, our focus is always on a holistic approach. Because if you take care of yourself holistically, it means that it reaps down to the benefit where you will have more cash to save, to invest, and to leave a heritage for your children.
Correct.
So as we wrap up, I seriously want to thank you for affording us the opportunity to have such a good discussion this evening. And folks, we have not even delve below the surface as yet. I think that we have only scratched the surface.
Quite true.
And we have had such a good and meaningful conversation in terms of proper foot health. So before we leave, I want to hand it back over to Madam Secretary, Ms. Dixiane D'Souza, who would bring greetings to everyone. And then I would come back to me, do the closing, and then Dixie will take us out in prayer. So, Madam Secretary, Ms. D'Souza.
Yes, good afternoon once again. What a wonderful present. Very applicable our lives, actually. I think we need to really consider our feet. As I asked earlier, I had, a case of athlete's foot on different occasions, and I had to rectify that problem. And what I started doing too is paying attention to my feet in that I would soak it ever so often in Epsom salts. So that really assisted because, sometimes you're on your feet every day. I'm one that I'm on my feet. When they call, you have to go here, there, and everywhere. And at the end of the day, my feet would be a bit swollen and sometimes it would be very painful. So I started soaking my feet, as well as while I'm in the office, I would actually put a box and have my feet elevated. And these little things that I did actually helped, with the pains and so on. So that being said, I really enjoyed this session, and I really hope that persons take note or members take note, because this is an important area of our life. And I want to also take the opportunity to thank you, Leana, for your outstanding presentation on foot health. And we really appreciate your expertise and insights, which were very invaluable, and we are grateful for the time and the effort that it took to share your knowledge with us. Thank you so much. I want to also thank the membership for those persons who have supported these webinars. There are those that have been attending regularly, and they are very committed. I want to thank you for your support. And we're very proud to have you as our members. And as you know, we are committed to providing you with the best possible service and financial products. And we will be doing that in the year 2024. I want to thank, a lot of people don't understand and don't know the kind of background work that takes place when we have these webinars. So I want to thank the IT team as well for their role and their dedication in supporting our credit union, even during these times when we needed their assistance. I want to thank the board, all the committees, the members of staff, and our manager as well, Mr. Norman Barton. I want to thank him as well for his dedication to the credit union, for their dedication, I should say, to the credit union, and in helping us to achieve our goals over the year 2023 and the years in the past. And I want to thank the president as well, our co-host here, who has this vision, this vision to really assist the members, to support the members, and to give and provide the best possible service to our members. Sometimes we want to know how he come up with these ideas, where he gets these ideas from. And those ideas are so applicable and so interesting. And, sometimes we wonder, oh my God, we didn't think of that. How did the president come up with that? So we want to thank him for the vision, for the ideas that he comes up with to have these webinars and to really assist the membership. And finally, as we approach the end of another year, on behalf of the credit union, we'd like to wish you all and your families a very Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year. May the holiday season be filled with joy, peace, and happiness. Thank you. Back to you, President.
Thank you so very much, Madam Secretary. And as we wrap up this evening, I just want to remind all of us that our bodies are talking to us. When we pay particular attention to our feet speaks.
Correct.
That's what I have learned today. Our feet speaks. And when our feet speaks, we need to listen. And in listening, we need to pay particular attention. And if we see something, then we come to Leana. We go to our doctors, and our doctors may refer us to Leana, podiatrist, or she may refer us to our doctor. So they both go hand in hand. So I want us to remember, folks, that your feet are the foundation of your body. And taking care of them is an essential part of good foot health. It speaks to our health and it speaks to our overall well-being. So therefore, if at any time at all you are experiencing any problem at all, you need to visit a podiatrist, you need to visit your doctor. And do so because sometimes we like to take things for granted. We're feeling the pain, but we're suffering through it. Christmas, we painting, and we cannot wait to get to the bottom of the ladder, so we jump down.
Correct.
And as we jump, we may jump on a stool, or we jump and we twist our ankle. And that, of course, can cause foot problems. So I want us to please listen to what Leana said today in terms of the health tips in having good foot health. And we will be posting this webinar on all our social media platforms. You all can feel free to review it at any point in time. I want to encourage persons, when you visit our website, if you have any questions at all that you may think of thereafter, you can feel free to WhatsApp us, and Trevlon will, of course, send the questions across, and we would send it to Leana, the expert, who will give us the answers, and then we will answer you right away in terms of, because we want to ensure that you understand that your foot speaks to you, and when it speaks, you must have the correct answer to take good care of it. So I want to thank all of you for attending this evening's webinar, and this is a Christmas gift to all of you from the Board of Directors of Western United Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited. So remember moderation, remember proper footwear. I realize, Trevlon, like you're frightened to show the footwear that they shouldn't wear, proper footwear, and to look at your feet on a daily basis. And that, in that way, you can catch whether something is off or not. And you can visit your podiatrist or your doctor. So, Leana, thank you very much. And I also want to thank Al Mawi Clinic, Holistic Clinic, for sharing your time and your expertise with us, the membership, and the wider population of Trinidad and Tobago. I also want to thank Mommy in the background for helping us put this together this evening. I want to thank you very much, Mommy. Brian, Trevlon, Sean, who laughing at me in the corner ever so often. It's all good. And I want to wish everyone a very holy, happy, and holistically blessed Christmas season. And of course, a bountiful, holistically blessed 2024. Let's all remember that Christmas is not about the rum and the black cake and the nice food. Christmas is about the reflection and the waiting in anticipation of the coming of Christ the King. And as he came already, we are now reenacting the waiting, the coming, as we go through the Advent season. So we wait in hope, and in waiting in hope, we wait and we thank God that He gave us His peace, and then His joy, and then His love. The whole Advent season there, Leana. Right. So hope, peace, joy, and love. And that is the true Christmas season as we wait to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. So thank you, and I wish all of you a very Merry Christmas on behalf of the Board of Directors. Good night.